so compelling. So thank you for that good work. Well, 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 here we are. We are in week six. Going to download some other accent here, I guess. We're in week 6 of our series on the gathering, which my friends here from Elk Grove are familiar with this because we did this series in Elk Grove back by popular demand. And what we've been talking about essentially for 5 weeks has been this notion of preparing ourselves. You know, our understanding of the divine is that it's already present, see? And that's the part that we don't get. So what we have to do is we have to move, you know, all those parts of ourself out of the way that are obstacles to the awareness of what's already so and what's true. And it's, you know, it's sometimes it's a mighty task, you know, to unburden our minds and to create space and a receptivity and an openness and an awareness to we're already in the midst of. And therein lies where the work is. You know, God's work, however you envision God, is done insofar as you are concerned. Did you think there was more? Were you looking for more progress and expecting a higher power? Well, the truth is that a higher power can do great things in us or to us, but only through us. So therein lies the sort of, you know, that's the turning point in spiritual transformation. It's not about the divine becoming suddenly more interested in your life, because that's not any more possible than I'd like to say, for the ocean to become more interested in the wave, you know. The wave already contains all of the qualities of the ocean, and it's taking on a particular form. It's taking on a particular configuration. It's rising up out of the infinite unity of all that is and having a separation moment. You know, coming up out of the ocean, like we were talking about in the kids' story, you know, the wave rises up, and if it looks around and forgets to look to where it comes from, it sees itself as being completely isolated, right? And alone. And that's what you and I are. We've emerged out of this oneness. We've emerged out of this infinite field of love that created us, and then we forgot that we were part of that, and so we have come into this consciousness of separation in which we feel like we have to get all these things out here in our life, you know, we need to get these things so that we can feel that sense of wholeness again, that sense of peace, that sense of love, that sense of connection. And all the while, the ocean is saying, just chill, you know? Just drop into this spaciousness of everlasting love out of which you have never left. And so there's no more work for the divine to do in our life, but there is work for us to do so that we can unclutter the mind that would argue against that unity and that love. Yes? So here we are. It's just one more story. It's one more way to get there. I always marvel at the fact that I've been doing this now for 18 years, which means if you multiply that times, you know, 50 years, 50 weeks, that's a lot of talks, right? And it's like, okay, well, how do you do this differently? How do you say it differently? And then the other part of me goes, why would you want to say it differently? If you spoke the truth last week, why don't you just do that again? Isn't that what this is all about? No. Why do you want to do it differently? But see, that's the ego, right? The ego says, oh, you need a new car, you know, which I have. And I feel so much more complete. I want you to know, now that I have that black Mazda sitting out there, I am more for having that. Until I got my first scratch on it. Lance was with me, you remember? I was like, oh my God, how did he do that? And then suddenly the car, it loses its luster, right? You know, it's like, oh, maybe I should get another car, or what is it now? So anyway, I don't need to say this any other way, nor do you need to find a new book or a new workshop or anything else. The work for us, and I think that if we're going to get it right down to what this message has been for the last 5 weeks, is to get it down to a point where you want the truth more than the illusion. If I want to know who and what I am more than my attachment and my fixation on acting out this false self, this life that I continually, pretend is who I am, and the more that I pretend that I'm something other than this spiritual being, the more I am arguing in favor of the separation, the more I am finding myself up out of the ocean looking around going, this is not it. And then I have to pop up somewhere else and with another person, with another situation, with another set of goals or circumstances or some imagined future that would somehow give me that sense of the presence and the power and the love that I'm seeking. And all the while, the Spirit of the living truth goes, drop back into the sea. So step 6 is this. I acknowledge that a consciousness of God is the answer. That life is a consciousness of God. I'm going to read a little bit from the book today. Emmett Fox, a 20th century metaphysician, coined the phrase, life is, does anyone know? Consciousness. Many of you know this. This statement points to a key insight necessary for successful and dynamic living. There is a relationship between our thoughts, attitudes, beliefs, and life experiences. If we think we are failures, we tend to fail. Even when victory is in our grasp, we falter. People who carry guilt in their hearts tend to find a way to punish themselves. People who think of themselves as victims can usually point to happenings that substantiate their belief. He says, my exploration of this statement and various prayer practices and their effect in my life has spawned a related statement that is at the very heart of the gathering. Life is a consciousness of God. I have come to believe that experience is consciousness, but, and here's the big but life as it is meant to be requires that I become aware or conscious of God. Life is what happens when we become aware of the presence. In other words, to be alive is to be aware of spirit. So we understand this notion that life, our experiences in life have to do with our thoughts and our beliefs and our attitudes. We get that. That's sort of a psychological notion. We know that the optimistic person versus the pessimistic person would have two entirely different interpretations of the same circumstances, right? And we even kind of connect our theology with it. So we can say that if someone comes down with a life-threatening illness, if you're a pessimist, you might go, oh my God, why is this happening to me? And this is the end. And, might kind of go down a sort of a negative spiral. And a positive person might say something like, I know this is going to work out for my greater good. And then they can connect it to a theology that says that there's one presence, one power in the universe, God the good, omnipotent, and so I know that there's a divine idea behind my optimism. I'm actually, connecting my perspective to what I believe to be ultimately true. And so I can change my experience by how I interpret my events in my life. And so the consciousness, you can just think of, it's a big word that basically means your thoughts and your ideas and your beliefs, and that can color our experience. But do we just want to color? When we grow up, coloring is not enough for many of us. Do we want to just put a nice hue on the experiences of our life, or do we actually want to go into the awareness of something deeper that we don't even have to color in order for us to know its essential goodness, its essential wholeness, its essential peace, its essential deep and abiding knowing of our connection to all that we want. And that's the shift from just knowing that life is consciousness and shifting our attitudes and knowing that the consciousness of God is what brings us life with a capital L. See, all this stuff that happens to us, those are life situations. But you and I want to know about life. We want to know about life. We want to know about that which doesn't change, that which doesn't rise and fall, that which doesn't shift, that which is eternally and always us. And that is what he's talking about in this chapter. He said, life is a consciousness of God. Not life situations, but life with a capital L is a consciousness of God. That's the life we're after. That's what the whole gathering practice is about. It's about returning us to an awareness of that essential nature that we have lost sight of, in which we are constantly moving and having our very being in it, and yet we don't know it. And that's why Jesus said, probably the words that we hang on more than any other, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. So really easy to get it reversed, isn't it? Seek ye all these things, the added unto part. Let's start with that. Let's make out the list. I know what's wrong with her and what he needs to do and what I want from in my life. And I want this and I want that. And I want a new car and I want this and do that too. And then I will be in the kingdom of happiness. Don't we have that sort of syllogism going on in our mind? It's the if-then, but Jesus, being the great psychologist, the great flip-flop, because, the truth is always a reversal of what we think, It's always a reversal of the problem. We think the problem is out there, so we work out there for a solution. But the truth is the reverse of that. The problem is not out there, the problem is in here, and so the work must be done out there. No. Even when we hear it, we want to go out there because we're tough. I'm a tough study. Are you a tough case? Don't you just kind of hang on to that idea that, yeah, but let me just tweak this landscape of my life just a little bit here, and it'll be so much more beautiful. I will feel so much more peaceful. Oh, yes. Oh, if she loved me the way she should love me, if, they would just do it the way I want them to do it, if I just had this pile of money back that I lost in the 2008 stock market crash, if I finished college, if I finally got my degree, if I finally bing, bing, fill in the blanks of your own story. Do we know this one? It's the hokey pokey, and we think that's what it's all about. And it's just one more ego dance, right? Just another dance, another sleight of hand, the illusionist would say. It's a sleight of hand to convince you that something really magical has happened. And the truth is, the only thing that's happened is we've created one more obstacle to the awareness of what's true and what's real. And so we're actually, it's an antithesis of what we want, because the more we create a story about what needs to change out here in order for us to be happy, the more we've built a barrier to the presence of that which is already here, which is waiting not for anything to happen out here, but for some shift to take place in here. I rest my case. And I'm talking to me, folks. You know that. I am talking to me. Let's have a little roomie. You have room for roomie? There is one thing in this world which you must never forget to do. If you forget everything else and not this, there is nothing to worry about. But if you remember everything else and forget this, then you will have done nothing in your life. If it is as if a king has sent you to some country to do a task, and you perform 100 other services, but not the one he sent you to do. Remember the deep root of your being, the presence of your Lord. Give your life to the one who already owns your breath and your moments. And if you don't, you'll be like the one who takes a precious dagger and hammers it into his kitchen wall for a peg to hold his dipper gourd. You'll be wasting valuable keenness and foolishly ignoring your dignity and your purpose. Every one of us has come here. Every one of us has come here for the same existential purpose. No matter what we think, And that's to awaken to who we are. Every desire that we have, every want that we have, every whim or fancy or thing that rises up in us and has us yearning for something other than what is right now is some version of wanting to be who we are, of wanting to be connected to that sea of infinite knowing, that peace. And because that's so, because that's an ultimate truth, then every time those things arise in our life, this is our work. I mean, if we're interested in the transformational teachings that are offered in this kind of work, if we're interested in the transformation, then every time those situations come up for us, it's not to say that we go, oh, bad spiritual student, you're wanting something in the world. No, because we know about the second arrow. Remember we talked about the second arrow, I don't know, weeks ago, which is basically, you have a thought and the thought is, or you do something and you're not very proud of it, and then you beat yourself up for doing it. That's the second arrow. So judgment is never going to get us to the kingdom of God, okay? We need to be compassionate with ourselves as human beings when we realize we have a human thought or a human desire. But the deeper story, and this is where the wave drops back into the sea in consciousness, and is to say, what is this really asking? What is this really revealing? How is this a pointer unto a greater truth that I am seeking? How is this desire really a desire for a greater sense of intrinsic wholeness? Because that, my friends, and I'll never say that again, I said, after the last election, I couldn't stand that word. And somehow it just pops up. It's probably because I'm wearing this outfit today. I don't know why that would have anything to do with it, but somehow, you know how we are, just search for a reason to blame. So the point is this. Every desire you and I have is a desire for life, with a capital L. And then it takes on these imposter, it takes on the role of the lesser. But remembering that its root is wholeness. It comes from a desire to be whole, to experience peace and love and joy. That's not conditional. I feel love. If I'm connected with the sea, I don't know anything about drought. If I'm connected with love, I know nothing about what you need to do in order for me to feel loved. And if I'm in this current of peace that runs deep in me, then that which happens and the conflicts and the people that agree with me or don't agree with me or call me this or call me that, those don't touch that part of me. Even though they may tear me apart on the outside, I can hold on to something deeper and truer, that which is invulnerable to the slings and arrows of outrageous misfortunes. And that, my friends, is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And it's one that I struggle with every day. I have lists everywhere. Do you have lists in your life? Do you have to-dos that are do-dos? To do or to do? That is the question. And sometimes I look at them and I go, look at this enormous objection you have made to peace. Look at this grand and compelling case that you have built against peace of mind. But only as Jesus said, if I give it that power. Otherwise, it has no power over me. So I can have lists of things that I have to do. I can have lists of people that need to change and, all those things we do, don't we? I joke about the fact that when because Denise goes in and out of my life because she travels, and I realize I go through a week, and I realize that, you know, I don't have many issues, because when you live with somebody, have you noticed that you push each other's buttons, right? And when Denise is gone, then I don't have the grist for the mill of my own awakening quite so much. Now, hear me now, I'm not saying Denise pushes my buttons any more than I push her buttons. But, you know, we come together for a reason. Have you figured this out yet? That the attraction phase, right, that which brought you together, also has the fire of transformation built into the relationship. Yeah? Yeah. So what that has found in our life is that you know, we have this passion and this love for each other, and then we also have these things that cause us to, you know, to fire off, and it's the love that keeps you at the table to do the work so that you can find a deeper love, which has nothing to do with other. As I was talking to somebody this week about my fear of public speaking, and how, you know, I got this desire 20 years ago to share these teachings, and I had this tremendous fear of public speaking that I'd always avoided it my whole life. I was just scared to death, you know. It was like death, public speaking, you know, order of fear. And so I avoided it all through my life, but then this desire to do this work came up. So see the perfection of this. See, there's this passion that's driving you to express more of who you are. And if it wasn't there, there wouldn't be a strong enough impulse or compelling you to move through your fears. See the perfection of that. And I believe that at the core of every one of us, there is this ocean of truth, of who you really are, that's wanting to express through us. We say it up in our mission statement. There's something that's wanting to express through us. It's more of who we are, and that will bring us up against all of those edges, all of those rough places, all of those circumstances and situations that represent our growing edge, our inability to seemingly be able to deal with. But we stay present to those conflicts because there's something greater that wants to express through us. And that becomes the power that keeps us present so that we can break through. It's the you know, the caterpillar that, you know, doesn't know why it climbs up in the tree, you know, but it has a sense that there's a greater life, you know, and it has to go through this dark night, right? And has to break through this encrusted sort of, you know, in shell, and it has to become a dissolved caterpillar before it can become the new, you know, imaginal cells that become the butterfly. That's how transformation happens for us too. It's not pretty necessarily. I mean, we look at Jesus, you know, we go, okay, my life looks pretty good. So we'll get into that. I don't want to get ahead of myself. That comes later in the month, next month. But we understand that enlightenment doesn't mean that your life just unfolds in this sort of beautiful grace and ease and joy. And the human level. But the work is for me to be connected with that part of me that is courageous, that feels the impulse of expansion, of growth, of wanting to be more of who I am, to be more transparent to my ego, to be, you know, that's what when Jesus said, when you see me, you see the Father. He had become transparent to that personality, to that persona. And that's what you and I are trying to do. That's the impulse. That's the ocean wanting to keep that current of growth at the forefront of your consciousness, always reminding you there's more of who you are here. There's more to be revealed through this situation, the one right here, the one that's right in front of you, if you bring awareness to it, if you bring willingness to it, if you bring a conscious willingness to break through. Now, this isn't easy, folks, but we've tried the other way. We've tried running from it. We've tried denying it. We tried hiding it. We tried moving across the country. I tried that one. And I wrote a talk one time. I wrote an article one time saying, "What state are you in?" Because I moved from Illinois to California thinking, I'm outstrip and outrun all my issues, my family issues, right? And you take you with you wherever you go. Have you noticed? You go off to Hawaii, you got the $500 a night suite, and you open your bags, and there you are. Your stuff is there. You and all your stuff. And you go, wait a minute. It's supposed to be perfect here. But you go, of course it's here. Of course it's here. I mean, here I am, and here's my stuff. Now what? Life is not what's happening out here. Those are life situations. I can't hear this enough. Can you? Those are life situations. But life, a consciousness of life. Seek ye first the awareness of life. And then all these things will be added unto you. Now, what are all these things? It may mean you get the job, or you get the lover that you want, or you may get the money. But I think the added things are this. I think they're the peace. I think they're the ability to be in the world but not of it. That's the added things. You know, there's no guarantee that if you did your spiritual life perfectly, that everything would turn out perfect in the outer. Is anyone holding that anymore? Because I'd suggest let's let that one go. Because I'll just argue with you on that point, because there's too many spiritual masters who have proven that's not the case. But if you could glimpse into the consciousness of those spiritual masters, you would see a very different sine wave. You would see a very different EKG. You would see a very different level of stress and blood pressure in the midst of those challenging circumstances. It's because their life is not just of the body, and their experience of life is not just of the events of life out here. And that's what you and I want, isn't it? Not so sure. Some days yes, some days no. So I want to do a little Bible thing for you here, because, you know, open your Bibles if you would, please. Note to self. Okay. So this is a familiar story if you've ever read the Bible. This is Peter walking on the water. Remember that one? Don't stop me if you've heard it. Matthew 14:22. Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up to the mountain by himself to pray. And when evening came, he was there alone. But by this time, the boat, battered by the waves, was far from the land, for the wind was against them. Anyone relate to the wind being against you? Mm-hmm. And early in the morning, he came walking toward them on the sea. Anyone relate to that? But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost," and they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat, started walking on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he noticed the strong wind, he became frightened and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me." And Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." reason I wanted to share that story with you, besides the ocean analogy, is the one part of that story that seems essential. Because every one of us is facing some version of this story, metaphorically speaking, and that's the one where Jesus says to Peter, "Get out of the boat." So the boat, of course, in the story represents a place of relative safety. Now, they've been battered and bashed around all night long, because you notice it says in the story that in the evening it started, and in the morning is when Jesus shows up. So they've been dealing with these horrendous conditions all night long. You've had that dark night. You know what I'm talking about. And there seems to be some relative safety for Peter because he hesitates to go from a known risky situation to an unknown possibility of safety and connection with the divine. So we have this question before us in every moment. Are we going to get out of the boat? Are we going to leave what we have known to be our reality our whole life? Because we can see it, and we can touch it, and we can feel it. And it has this relative reality to it, even though it's fraught with danger and suffering and everything else. But at least we can say it's real. I can feel it. It's solid, you know. But transformation happens when you get out of the boat. The connection that is made with that which is more true, more essentially who you are, which is represented by Jesus in this story, the enlightened self, the full experience of and manifestation of love, that which is connected with the divine, is outside the boat. And it's inviting us to come. And it says, if you falter, I will reach out my hand. Because that's what eternity is about. It can't ever let you go. You could never fall through the cracks in the eternal realm. Not possible. But you certainly can here in this realm. So the question is, am I willing to give up a known limited life for a yet unknown, unlimited life that promises the eternal love, the eternal peace? I don't know. But every time we have a decision to make in our life this week, we might ask ourselves that question. What do I really want in this situation? What do I really want? What would it mean for me to exceed my normal way of responding in this situation, which is tantamount to staying in the boat? And what would it mean for me to think in more broader, more possible perspectives? What if I thought of myself as part of this grand ocean, which is infinite possibilities, appearing right now as just one iteration of that in my life, and I am surrounded by infinite possibilities. And what would it mean for me to emerge from this infinite sea of possibilities in a new way that might give me an entirely different experience of the ocean? Oh, you can just get your surfboard out and just stay on the top and surf your way along life on the known waves of the past, or in some perceived great wave of the future. Don't we know that one? The big wave. We'll go onto the north shore of Oahu or whatever, wherever that is, right? The big one. That's what I'm waiting for. But while you're flying to Hawaii, spending all of your money and with the brand new surfboard and everything else, there are people that are not even close to that illusion have stepped out of the boat, and they have found themselves in the deep peace and joy because they risked the known with all of its limitations and limited promises for what the Masters tell us is the unlimited peace that passes all human understanding. That's what the gathering practice is asking us to do. Nothing less than that, and no more than that. Let's take a moment. So as we find ourselves in the midst of life on life's terms, we are reminded that we are part of something so much grander than what's appearing to our physical eyes, to our body's eyes, and to our mind. And so we are reminded that this is a journey inward to this vast sea in which we truly already live and move and have our being. And that to know that is to be transformed. To know that is to obviate all other choices for our good. And so we thank you, Spirit, that you are always extending your hand, inviting us to step out of that consciousness that would limit us and keep us out of the kingdom of peace and love and joy where we truly want to return to if we had a bit of willingness in a moment. And so it is. Amen. Preaching to myself. I sure hope I listened to this message this week.